Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going to roll up our sleeves and perform a corporate autopsy on an absolute giant, one that fell from total market dominance to, well, complete bankruptcy. If you've ever found yourself wondering how an untouchable empire just collapses from the inside out, you're definitely in the right place. We're not just going to talk about the obvious shift from physical tapes to digital streaming today. No, we're looking at a deeply cautionary internal corporate history. This is really a story about executive decisions, massive boardroom blind spots, and the fatal price of getting just a little too comfortable. To truly wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this collapse, we've got to look at the numbers. Let's just rewind for a second to the year 2004. At that time, Blockbuster was an unstoppable juggernaut. I mean, they were pulling in billions in revenue and commanded a staggering global footprint of 9,000 locations. 9,000! They weren't just a store, they were a cultural institution. A Friday night movie rental meant the smell of popcorn, the distinct rattle of those clunky plastic DVD cases, and rushing down the blue and gold aisles to fight for the very last copy of a new release. They absolutely owned physical distribution and essentially had the cash to do whatever they wanted. But fast forward to today, and we're faced with the chilling reality of digital disruption. Out of those 9,000 global fortresses of entertainment, only a single, solitary store remains open in Bend, Oregon. And honestly, today it functions way more as a nostalgic museum than a booming business. It really represents one of the most drastic and complete corporate collapses in modern economic history. So how on earth does a company with billions in the bank and a store in practically every neighborhood just evaporate? Section 1. The Fall of a Giant. How the king of movie nights became a ghost. To figure this out, we need to look past the lazy answer of, well, the internet happened, and step directly inside their boardroom. Section 2. The $50 million mistake. A failure of executive vision. You see, the actual death of this company happened behind closed doors, hidden in executive meetings and financial spreadsheets, way before the final physical store locked its doors. We can actually trace the fatal infection right back to a very specific moment in the year 2000, when a massive blunder effectively sealed their fate. So picture this. It's the year 2000. A scrappy, cash-strapped startup called Netflix flies out to Dallas to meet with Blockbuster's executive team. They literally offered to sell their entire operation to Blockbuster for a measly $50 million. Let that stunning historical irony just sink in for a minute. Netflix proposed handling the online side of the business, while Blockbuster managed the physical stores. But what happened? The Blockbuster CEO notoriously laughed them right out of the room, completely dismissing the Netflix model as a mere niche business. They fundamentally missed the fact that the internet wasn't just some quirky new way to mail DVDs, it was about to permanently rewrite the laws of media distribution. When you look at the timeline of how this played out, the compression is just shocking. It brilliantly shows how fast the environment shifted, while Blockbuster's executives were looking the exact opposite way. In 2000, they laugh off a $50 million deal. Just 4 years later, in 2004, Blockbuster hits its absolute peak in revenue, which in their minds completely validated their arrogance. Yet only 6 years after that towering peak, by 2010, the giant is filing for bankruptcy. A single decade is literally all it took to go from rejecting the future to being completely destroyed by it. Section 3. The late fee trap, being held hostage by success. So we really have to ask ourselves, why did they reject that deal in the first place? It wasn't just pure hubris. It was actually a symptom of a deeper, systemic parasite killing the company from the inside out. When you break down their revenue, up to 15%, yes, 15% of Blockbuster's multi-billion-dollar cash flow relied entirely on late fees. Think about that for a second. A massive chunk of their operating profit was dependent on their own customers making mistakes and being penalized for them. This created an incredibly addictive cash flow for the bottom line. The executives literally couldn't imagine a world where they'd willingly turn off that massive faucet of free money, no matter how much you and I hated paying those fees. This brings us to a foundational business concept that is absolutely crucial to understand: the innovator's dilemma. This is the exact trap Blockbuster fell headfirst into. It's the dangerous phenomenon of being held hostage by your own success. You become so incredibly reliant on a highly profitable legacy revenue stream, like those massive late fees, that you are completely unable to pivot to a new, better model. And why? Because doing so would mean intentionally cannibalizing your own existing profits. You become literally frozen by your past victories. Let's look at how this played out in real time. On one hand, you have Netflix introducing their mail delivery model with a major game-changing hook: absolutely zero late fees. It was totally customer-centric and solved a huge pain point. On the other hand, Blockbuster is utterly paralyzed by the innovator's dilemma. If they match Netflix and drop their late fees, they instantly wipe out 15% of their corporate revenue overnight. The executives just couldn't stomach that short-term financial hit. So they clung tightly to their heavy late fees and forced store visits, practically driving their own customers straight into the waiting arms of Netflix. Section 4. Too little, too late. Winning the battle, losing the war. Now, let's see how this builds, because this is where our corporate autopsy gets really fascinating. You see, Blockbuster didn't just roll over and give up immediately. It's a really common misconception that they simply died the second streaming showed up. They actually woke up, fought back, and launched a massive counteroffensive called Total Access. It was this brilliant hybrid model where customers could rent DVDs online, get them by mail, and then exchange them in physical stores for immediate new releases. It was the perfect blend of their physical dominance and the new digital frontier. And here's the genuinely surprising part: the strategy was working beautifully. They were gaining major traction, adding millions of subscribers, and Netflix was officially terrified. But, and there's always a but in these internal corporate tragedies, the fatal blow came from within. The Total Access program was incredibly expensive to run, and it was cutting deeply into their short-term profits. This sparked massive internal friction among the board of directors. A vicious C-suite battle led to the abrupt ousting of the CEO who originally championed the whole digital pivot. The new leadership stepped in and immediately scrapped the winning Total Access strategy, simply to save short-term cash. They fatally chose to protect their next quarterly earnings report over securing their long-term survival. In the end, they snatched defeat right out of the jaws of victory. Section 5. Adapt or Fade, the post-mortem lesson. Which brings us to the chilling conclusion of this whole story. The fall of Blockbuster isn't just a simple tale about digital streaming magically defeating physical tapes. It's a stark, unavoidable lesson in corporate governance, executive priorities, and the absolute necessity of internal evolution. Blockbuster didn't fail because they lacked technology. They failed because they lacked the courage to disrupt themselves. They had the capital. They had the unparalleled brand footprint. They even had a winning strategy right in their hands with Total Access. But when it came time to endure the financial pain of actually transitioning their business model, their boardroom blinked. It was a complete failure of bravery. Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought to carry with you. Take a hard, honest look at your own business, your own department, or even your own career skills. Are you relying on outdated models simply because they're comfortable right now? What are your late fees, those highly addictive legacy crutches that you're just too afraid to abandon? Are you courageous enough to let go of them and disrupt yourself before the market forces you to? Think about it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I challenge you to take a really hard look at your own strategies